Electrocast.
I really struggled with depression, and so much so that there was a point where I had a gun in my mouth, I pulled the trigger and it didn't go off. And that was a really powerful moment, a life-changing moment for me. I finally opened up to my dad about my depression, and he turned to me and he said, "You selfish little prick."
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, sharing our methods and strategies for success. Join in on our conversations with business owners as we highlight their triumphs and detail how they overcame the challenges they faced while continuing to grow and scale their business. It's time to think life, think success, and think business with your host, Tyler Martin.
At 16 years old, he put a gun in his mouth and he pulled the trigger, but it didn't go off. That moment changed everything. What followed was a path from depression and arrest to building a multi-business empire, serving thousands of kids through sports. Today's guest doesn't just talk about success, he lives it, from the field to the boardroom. If you want to know how raw adversity becomes purpose and how culture can 2x your team's output, don't go anywhere. Hey, Dan, welcome to the Think Business with Tyler podcast show. How's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me, Tyler. Really excited.
Thank you, man. I'm almost like just want to continue. Before we started this interview, we've been chatting about things. I feel like I could just continue to chat with you and just say the heck with the podcast.
Yeah.
You're fun to talk with. Hey, where I'd love to start with just learning what you do professionally. What are you doing right now professionally?
Yeah. So I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones that's blessed to wake up and get to do what I love every single day. And we're really pursuing this vision of giving more kids the same experiences that I was fortunate enough to have through sport, and that a lot of our team members, most of our team members, were fortunate enough to have. And we do that in a number of ways through a variety of sports-focused businesses. And it's just been an incredible journey, and I get to build every single day.
That's very cool. So the other thing I want to ask you, and then I'm going to dig into that response you just gave me, but the other thing I want to learn about you, something on a personal note, anything you could share that maybe people don't know about you?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a good place to start from a story perspective.
Sure.
Everything that I have now and that has come over the last 10 years and that will come over the next 50 years is definitely a product of growing up. I really struggled with depression. And so much so that there was a point where I had a gun in my mouth, I pulled the trigger and it didn't go off.
Wow.
And that was a really powerful moment, a life-changing moment for me. I finally opened up to my dad about my depression, and he turned to me and he said, "You selfish little prick." And I was like, "Ooh, that's not the," and he's an old school Italian guy, just not an emotions guy. And, but he knew exactly what to do. And he put the car in reverse. He took me to the fields I grew up playing at, and he pointed at one of the fields and he said, "Pick a coach, any field. I want you to go out and I want you to ask if you can help. You need to do something in service of others." Mm-hmm. And I get goosebumps telling the story every time because it really was a life change. It's the first time I did something in service of others. And I believe that's really where fulfillment and true happiness is really captured in life. And I vowed from then on that I would have a positive impact through sport. And I didn't know exactly what that meant or how it was going to happen, but I knew I needed to really buckle down and focus and get good marks in school and start to stay out of trouble and break out of this mental depression that I was going through, to be able to even get to a point where I could understand why that gun didn't go off and what I'm really meant to do. And I really feel like I've just had such a lucky break, going through something like that early and finding a passion for business and for building businesses around sports and to give more kids these same opportunities to have their life, just the direction totally changed.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
To give more kids these same opportunities to have their life, just the direction totally changed.
Well, okay. So Dan, let me just dig in a little bit there. What age were you when this gun incident happened?
Probably around at 16, 17.
Wow, so that's really young. What got you to a point like how do you get that depressed? Like was it more like chemically imbalanced, or were there things happening in your life that just weren't going your way, or what triggered that?
Yeah. So I think this is one of the really important things around mental health is a lot of times people like think, how did the person get to that point? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's 100 different ways, right? But once somebody's at that point, how do they get past that point? Because everybody's perception of being at the point where you would consider taking your own life is a really a function of like pain, resilience, like different things that go on, right? And not one person's journey is any worse or better. It's just their own journey, right? So I always try to preface it with that, but it did run in my family. There had been other people who had taken their own lives. There was a series of things that had happened up to that point. I was dyslexic. I'm deaf in one ear. I'm ADHD out the wazoo, if you can't already tell by how much I'm talking. And so all of those things just didn't really lead to a conforming mind at a private school. So I was asked to leave at a very young age. And then the next school I went to, I was asked to leave again. So I was arrested multiple times by that point in my life. I was doing all sorts of drugs. I was really on a bad, I would be dead or in jail if it wasn't for that life-changing moment. 100%. There's no question.
Okay. So now you're at 16, your dad has a lot of wisdom and he's like, man, you got to have purpose. And he takes you to some sports field and says, kind of sets it up for you to have a reason or a purpose or helping people. Can you dig into that a little bit? Like, did someone take you under their wing at that point? Did you just start coaching and helping kids, or how does that evolve?
That's a really good question. I think it's one of the beautiful things about a youth sports program is when you go out on those fields and you ask if you can help, you're part of a community. You're around a bunch of at this time it was a boys program, so I was around a bunch of men who were there volunteering their time in service of others, and they were 25 to probably 55-year-old guys coaching their kids. And so I'm just around all of these people who are iron sharpens iron environment. And then they're pouring into these kids and this like just this selfless, it's just addicting. It's really addicting.
Yeah.
So there were a couple people, I would say a guy that stands out was a guy, Roy Frankhauser, had a kid who was a face-off guy, and he asked me to give him private lessons. And I was like, what's that? And he helped me kind of form the first private training company in the area. And I was probably 15 or no, I was 16 because it was right after that. So, because I had to have my brother drive me to the fields to give the lessons sometimes. So, yeah.
So let's dig into also this concept, because I think a lot of us either have been here or are there now. And that's this whole concept of happiness, like finding what gives value to our life, what's our meaning. Talk about that a little bit more, because I'm sure it didn't happen overnight. How did you start to get this self-worth out of like helping others?
So I will say that it was an instant feeling of when you're serving somebody else, you can't think about yourself. So you immediately snap out of whatever mental headspace you're in. So there was this immediate reaction to just going out and coaching and being of service to others. But I was just having a conversation with our operations manager right before this, Kelsey Helbert, and she is amazing. And her and I have implemented, and a couple others in the company have implemented a program called Culture by Design. And part of the program is this positive intelligence course that we go through. And there's an element of it where you take an assessment and it tells you how often are your saboteurs, is your ego getting triggered and it's not serving you versus it is serving you. And the key to it is if you're above a 75, you're in a positive vortex. You're in a positive, uplifting cycle mentally. And it makes a massive difference. You can notice the difference. If you're below a 75, you're actually in a negative vortex. And so you're pulling yourself down over time more. And the key to it is it's not a stagnant thing. It's not like you take the test and that's it. It is every single day. It has a natural decay. So you have to invest in it every single day. And that investment is self-awareness. You have to have the awareness to be conscious of how you're getting in your own way. And then you have to make the conscious decision to choose a different habit or choose a different way of going about it. So for me, coaching has always been really important. And whether that's me out on a field coaching or me coaching other business leaders, or it's always evolved, but it's always been there. And it's a core pillar to my personal goals and how I want to operate as a human.
Very cool. Do you happen to remember that Saboteurs? There's a book, and I think this is probably under that guy's book. Do you remember the name of this program that you're talking about, or the book?
It's called Positive Intelligence, and it's Shaman.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great program. It's one of the elements of our Culture by Design program that we've implemented at all of the companies. And I am a big believer. Culture is a secret weapon. And I can't believe I was on with our ops manager, Kelsey Halbert, and she was saying how most organizations have this sales versus operations mindset. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
Sell. But then everybody's like, man, the salespeople, they just don't put in tickets right, or they don't set the client up right, or whatever. That is bizarre to me, right? Coming from a sports background, it's like, wait, we both have the same objective. We want to win the game. Right. The defense has to work with the offense. Mm-hmm. The defense has to get the ball to the offense. And then the offense has to score. And if the offense can't score, they got to hold on to the ball so the defense doesn't get shelled the whole time. You have to work together. It has to be one team. So part of the Culture by Design bridges the gap of different departments by having this cross-functional, dedicated time to be intentional about the personal development journey that we go on every 12 months. And it's a cycle. And it starts with self-awareness of how you get in your own way. So how does your ego get in your own way? And then it goes to how's your ego get in the team's way? So we go from Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday, really great book. I'm sure you're nodding like you've read it. It's a good one.
Yeah. It's a good one.
And that one really helps you get out of your own way and creates awareness over how the ego shows up. And then we go 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Patrick Lencioni, right?
Patrick Lencioni, amazing book. And that's how you get in the team's way of winning. So what dysfunction can you bring sometimes to the table? So how do you get in your own way? Then how do you get in the team's way of what we're all trying to accomplish? And in between these, we have these assessments like the Positive Intelligence Assessment. So it's like a micro course within the Culture by Design program. And then we finish with the Ideal Team Player, another Patrick Lencioni book. So what does winning look like as a team? What does it look like to be an ideal team player? Everybody wants to win, but they have to know what it looks like to win.
Yeah.
So it's really a cool program.
I don't think Shirzad, is that how you say his name? Shirzad Chamine. When he wrote that book, and maybe he has a new version, but when I bought it, I don't think he had that personality assessment at the time, because he had a program. I'll have to check that out because that's interesting. You know, it's another interesting thing, you're talking about ego. My podcast coming live next week, a guy named DJ Moore, very interesting. Their whole challenge in their business was ego. Like they thought the people, the executives that yelled the loudest would actually be the most right. And so they get into these meetings all yelling at each other, and the last man standing or last person standing, because I'm not sure if it was both sexes, last person standing would be kind of get to go with the decision. And he came to find out, obviously, after a period of time, that just wasn't an effective methodology for running a business. And so I love to hear you bring up ego several times, because I do think this is one of the barriers to business growth. And culture, obviously, is a secret weapon.
Yeah. I think, what do they say? It's like people, process, and finance are like the 3 issues in any business.
Yeah.
I think the people one could be summarized as ego.
Yeah.
How do we get in our own way? How do we get in our team's way of winning? And then finance and operations really take care of themselves. So when you have an aligned team, an aligned vision, right people, right seats, you're operating at a high velocity of execution because people are getting better personally, professionally. Their whole life is improving.
Yeah. So one thing I want to switch gears to and talk about, I believe you said you have 5 companies now. So I want to talk a little bit about pivoting and adaptability in a business. Can you kind of share your stories of like pivoting and how you've had to adapt to the marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually talking with one of my strategic advisors, Jay Grayson, another amazing guy, one of the managing members of Supply Chain Equity Partners, a supply chain focused private equity shop, the only supply chain focused exclusively private equity shop. And we were talking about when you've gone through the gauntlet and you kind of understand things at a different level and you know what questions to ask. And when we first got on, I was like, I was curious about your business because I generally love to know how things work and how they make money. And we figured it out in probably 30 seconds,
Yeah.
maybe a minute.
Yeah.
And that intellectual curiosity gets way sharper when you get more experience and when you've been through the gauntlet. So when somebody asked me like, what is pivoting 10 years ago, I would have been like, I don't know. You like the business isn't working. You have to pivot. I don't know.
It's a drink.
It's like, yeah, right. And now it's like, man, I have really pivoted and I have done multiple different types of pivots. And we really as a team. And some of our team members have been here since the beginning, since for 10 years. So in the process, I started with making a better lacrosse ball. So we made the first premium lacrosse ball in the market, created a new category. That's Signature Lacrosse, which is our direct-to-consumer CPG lacrosse equipment brand. Our number one on Amazon. We're the best junior stick in the game. We've really focused on that first-year player and making sure they're having an incredible experience with the sport, so they really stick with it. So you'll notice throughout all the companies, the vision is the same. It's a constant. And the vision is give more kids the same opportunity or better opportunity than we all had growing up in sports. And so Signature Lacrosse was the first. And then we launched Signature Events, we did youth program, nonprofit management agreements to help turn around a number of youth programs that were struggling here in the area. We built a travel program called Palms Lacrosse, which recently sold to another local community leader who's taken it over and keeping the community supported. It's just like a great way to do youth sports. And then we launched Signature Locker, the flagship, about 4 years ago now. And what we identified was across team sports, the number one problem is ordering custom uniforms and team swag is a nightmare. It takes 10 plus weeks to get your stuff. There's a 10% error rate across the entire market. We did a study and it was something like there's 102 million hours of coaches' time wasted handing out uniforms every single year. And that time could be spent focused on the kids.
Coaching.
Yeah, doing what they're there to do. And a lot of times they're volunteers, right? So that business has really exploded. We have an incredible team. Our director of team sales, Chad Henry's done an incredible job. There's so many people across the board that I would want to shout out. Andy Perry, our COO, who really co-founded in a lot of ways and helped build the technology that we developed called Athletech, which is really the proprietary platform that allows us to deliver this on-demand experience. So the industry average error rate's 10% across the market. Kids order custom stuff for their team or their sports program. It's going to take 10 weeks. There's going to be 10% error rate. It's really remarkable. We're averaging from order to delivery 15 days on average with a 99.7% order success rate across 12 months. We shipped last 12 months over 150,000 uniform sets. We'll ship 250 to 500,000 in the next 12 months. And so every program that we take a consultative approach, we're really solving a problem by taking the uniform ordering process off their plate and outsourcing it to us. So where before they were getting that big uniform order into the facility, to the fields, and then they have to go hand it out. We ship it right to the parent store. They don't have to do that anymore. So we save in that 102 million hours of time, and the parents get a direct experience. We ship in 15 days instead of 10 weeks, and then have a 99.7% order. Unfortunately, some parents still spell their name wrong at checkout.
It's crazy.
We print it on the jersey, and then you know what? We're going to replace it because everybody makes a mistake, and we're only making it 0.3% of the time. So we'll keep parents happy, you know?
You know what I think though, man? It's like when you're saying 10% of mistakes, I'm assuming wrong size, name spelled wrong, I don't know, whatever. But that means 10% of kids are disappointed, or 10% of people, but it sounds like it's mostly kids. That's pretty sad. Like, kid can't wait to get his jersey. He gets his jersey and it's got, I don't know, Fred spelled wrong.
Yeah.
That would be pretty disappointing.
The situations, like the case studies that we really like solved for with this Athletech that we developed, is the kid who is a first year player in a new sport that shows up on a team of other players that have been playing that all have uniforms, and they show up and their uniform was delivered late, a day late. So they show up without a uniform, and now they don't feel like they're part of the team and they're already struggling. So that's one situation that we were like, that can't happen ever. Like that is not allowed to happen. Whatever it takes. And so we even give the program director extra uniforms up front.
Wow.
That are unnumbered so that they can just hand them to a kid in case there's any emergency issue. But the second situation is, let's say that your registration ends, like some programs end 4 weeks before their first practice starts, right? That's because they have to place a bulk uniform order 8 weeks ahead of their first game.
Wow.
Having to stop the registration and not allow kids to jump into a sport that they might want to try because they can't get a uniform, that's insane. Yeah. So we have no minimum order quantity. You can order at any time. We're going to ship it right to the parent's door within 15 days of the time that they ordered.
If you're a business owner feeling stuck in your business, overwhelmed, responsible for everything that happens, and working long hours, Tyler helps his clients develop processes, hire high-performing team members, and better understand their financial metrics and numbers to allow for a more predictable, less hands-on business. To schedule a free, no-pressure consultation, head to thinktyler.com and click the meeting button. Tyler would love to see if he can help you work on your business, not in your business. Schedule a consultation today at thinktyler.com. Think life, think success, think business.
This episode is brought to you by the Toyota Grand Highlander. From daily routines to life-changing adventures, the Toyota Grand Highlander is spacious, powerful, and ready to take on life's grand challenges. Advanced safety features and innovative technology give you confidence for whatever life throws at you. And it's available in a hybrid Nightshade Special Edition, which includes sophisticated gloss black exterior accents and 20-inch black alloy wheels. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.
You can order at any time. We're going to ship it right to the parent's door within 15 days of the time that they ordered.
Wow, that's awesome. Hey, so just shifting gears, kind of the same thing, but shifting gears. To your own admission, you got a lot going on in your mind. You're probably thinking of a lot of different ideas all the time. In business, a lot of times you'll have the CEO is oftentimes a visionary. They're thinking big, they're thinking ideas. And then sometimes you'll have someone else in your company that's more of an operator that's executing the day-to-day plans. How do you keep yourself in check so that, or who does, so that your mind, your visions and your ideas aren't taking you off course in terms of what's most important to meeting your goals and your values?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, Gino Wickman, genius. It's an amazing system. We've augmented it with our Culture by Design program. So it's really if you think about EOS as a foundation, our house is built with Culture by Design, but we run the foundation is EOS. We run on EOS. So, and that's across all the companies that we operate. I'll never run a business without it. Anybody who's running a business sub 500 million and not using EOS is missing out. I'm telling you, it's just so simple. And in that structure, there's the visionary, and just like you were talking about, and then there's integrator.
Right.
And the ability for the visionary and integrator to work well together is rocket fuel. And you and I talked about this a little bit earlier. Like, ego is one of the major problems in business and in life, really in general. And that ego is really is the issue between a lot of times the visionary and the integrators, right? And or integrator. And so If you're the visionary, you're the CEO. If you're the integrator, you're the COO. If you're the integrator, you're the one that actually does the work and actually makes the thing happen. You're where the rubber meets the road. You should get the glory. Really, you're in the arena, right?
Right.
The visionary, you're the CEO. Like, they allow you to be in la la land. They allow you to use your childlike imagination and just think about what's possible and how could we change the future and impact the world in a positive way and accomplish our vision of impacting 1 million kids a year through sports. That you have to kind of think in a 5-year out, 10-year out, and it's hard to get into that space. And I was just talking to somebody else about this. Why is it hard to get into that space of thinking? Because we suppress kids from the time the first day they go to school. We say, don't daydream, don't think, don't imagine, don't do that. Like, focus, be here, be in this moment right now. And it's all, I think everything happens for a reason, but there's a reason that 10% or less of the world would be categorized as a visionary if they took the assessment. There's an assessment you can take to see if you're a visionary or an integrator. And if 10% of the world would be visionary, and that's not natural. That I think it's natural probably that everybody would be visionary and integrator, but I think we nurture suppression of imagination at such a young age that if you never use the muscle, you lose it.
That's an interesting angle. I've never heard it articulated that way. That's interesting. I didn't know the 10% number either. There's truth to what you say. I mean, we are kind of deflected from thinking too big or being free with our mind, especially when we're in school, unless you're you're taking a creative class or something. But generally, oftentimes it's suppressed. And that does come out in us probably in a way in our adulthood that we're suppressed from dreaming and thinking big. That's interesting. That is very interesting.
That's why I love that poster. Think bigger. I love that.
It's a good one. I try to live by that because it's so easy to put barriers in front of yourself. And
we all do.
You know, something I really like about you, and have you had this your whole life, or is it something you continue to enhance? And that's your inquisitiveness. You just are constantly want to ask. I can tell this is your personality. You want to ask questions. You want to understand how it works. I mean, at your age, to kind of be aware about EOS at the level that you're aware of it, have grown a $10 million plus business, to kind of have purpose in what you're doing. You don't usually this early in your career kind of have your hands around so many things that we're talking about. Where did all that come from? Is it day one, or as you honed it?
I really appreciate you saying all of that. I'm very flattered. Thank you. I would say the highlight that you missed, that is the reason why and overarches everything, is that I was incredibly fortunate to meet my wife 10 years ago. I never thought I would get married. I didn't think I would live past 16 or 18. I thought high school was like the end of it for me. I was really struggling with depression. Never in a million years did I think I would get married. None of my friends did. None of my family did. And I met this girl and I was like, man, if she'll go with me, she's the one. And I had gone through that depression and beat it. And so now if you fast forward from that moment, I ended up getting a Division I scholarship. I was fortunate to play lacrosse up at St. John's in Queens, New York, where I started the first business, Signature Lacrosse. Then I transferred to University of Tampa to play Division II when the business grew and I needed more time to focus on the business. And when I got down there, within about 6 months, I dropped out. So I really wasn't around a lot. And in that time, I was being tutored by a friend and or her roommate. And we met and I was like, man, if I could get this girl to go with me. And it took a year. So a lot of persistence.
Wow.
But I think through that journey, it was like, man, I know I want this. I know I want this so badly. I'll do whatever it takes to get this. What do I have to do? And then just knowing that it doesn't matter. I'm going to make it happen. So if I ask good questions and I'm intellectually curious and I'll find the path. I just need to know what it is because I'll do whatever it takes. I think just having that conviction that you're going to do the thing and you're going to get it done, and then letting yourself figure out how to get there and going into like sometimes me and Maddie joke, my wife, like max dumb mode. It's like, just go in like you don't know anything. Even if you do, pretend you don't and just learn and just see how much you can gain, because everybody's walk in life is different. And you can get something from every single conversation you're in. I really believe that.
But you just kind of another thing about how we're raised. We're kind of discouraged from being dumb, or there's a not being dumb, but asking dumb questions. Like, we're so afraid a lot of times, and at least in my world, you don't want to ask something that's just obvious. So sometimes you suppress your questions, and it suppresses your ability to learn. It suppresses your ability to connect. And I think I would argue that there is some of that in how we're raised that sometimes prevents people from growing and learning and getting to know different things.
And I think that is the ego disguised.
Right. You're right.
It really all connects. So the more awareness you have over not having the courage to ask what's intuitively coming to you that you feel like you need to ask. I think it's Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead. She talks a lot about like the role shame plays in ego and how it shows up. And I think that's one of the awarenesses that really was a huge unlock for me, because it was like, oh, wow, you can't get an F for asking a question. You can't get in trouble for asking a question unless you're in a classroom. Like, you're going to get yelled at in a classroom. In a business, people are going to be like, thank God you asked. And, I'm allergic to peanuts and I don't want that in my food,
Right. Right.
It's really a superpower to just become more self-aware, and emotional intelligence, I think, is the currency of the future in business. So we really invest a lot in that employee advocacy with the Culture by Design program, and making sure that people are sharpening that saw.
Yeah, that's great stuff. You're killing me with the books. I in my head, I've got this list of books I have to go back and reread, or I think I've pretty much read them all, but it's been years. So I got to go back and read them. So I appreciate you bringing those up.
Yeah.
I got a few more things before we wrap up. I do want to circle back to this culture-driven leadership. I'd love to get some really tangible things from you, if you can, in terms of what are you doing that you think is driving a great culture as a leader? Like, what are that you can think of, actual examples, if you can?
Yeah, we have a whole program. So we have very, very specific modules that we've intentionally built over the last 24 months, and everybody's a part of it. It's not just me, but we brought on a fractional chief talent officer, a guy, Barry Deutsch, amazing guy. He's written a couple books. He's a legend around the Vistage network, the peer-to-peer group. He's one of the biggest speakers. I don't know how many speeches he's done. He's hired like 100,000 people. So he and I fell in business love probably like 5 years ago. And just an amazing guy, a super intellectually curious, just like me, can go all the time. Probably has ADHD. I don't know if he does or doesn't. He can go. He's got a motor. And so we've been really good friends for a while. And the program, some of the tangible things that we do monthly Culture by Design meetings. So they're small group sessions. It's cross-functional. So different departments are in with each other. And it's a 12-month series. So the first one is all about ego is the enemy. So people take the positive intelligence assessment beforehand, and then everybody comes and they do the insights piece to it. So they'll dig in behind what's their number one saboteur. They'll read through, there's a specific section, the justifications, the lies that we tell ourselves. And you'll start to see things like, usually these habits or these like paradigms that you have form between the age of like, it's like 4 or 6 to like 12. So if you think back to like, for example, like hyperachiever for me is a huge driver. Why? Because I was horrible at school. I was always in trouble. The only thing I was good at when I was young was sports. When I scored goals, I felt love. I felt love from my parents. I felt love from the sidelines. I felt love from I never felt that, right? So of course I'm going to be driven to succeed in sports and business, anything that's competitive, because that's where I feel the most fulfillment. Knowing that now I can use that to serve me because I'm aware of it, and I can use specific tactics to. So how do you actually manage that, right? Because that could be a superpower, or it could be your greatest strength or your greatest weakness. So things like, if I get hyper fixated on one goal, which is typical, everything else, I can black it out. It's like nothing else exists, and I can just focus so exclusively on this one thing. But then I could lose sight of, and this is where my wife has played a major role in my life. I was so hyper focused on business. I wanted to work 18, 20 hours every single moment I was awake. I wanted to think about it, dream about it. I just love it. It's so much fun. It's an endless game, right? So, but what does it look like to be a great man? She challenged me. She said, is a great man just great at business? Or is he a great husband? Is he a great leader? Is he a great philanthropist in the community? Is he in good shape? Is he taking care of himself? What does it really look like to be a great man? So I think having people around you that challenge you to be what you have the potential to be is just so important. And that life partner that you pick is definitely the most important one.
Yeah, I was thinking as you're saying that, it's like picking your partner, your life partner is such a game changer in terms of good or bad. And the fact that she challenges you to be well-rounded is really huge because it's so easy to get obsessed with your business. And that becomes your identity, right? Like it's cool when it's going good, but God forbid it isn't, then that's your identity. That means you interpret that as you suck. Right? And I don't mean you physically, but that's how business owners often do. If their business goes bad, it means I suck. And it's not true. I mean, things happen.
Yeah. If they let their ego drive them, it really is the ego, because that's something her and I talk about all the time is disconnecting your self-worth from the outcome.
Yep.
Connect your self-worth to the inputs.
Yeah.
Did you give a shit? Did you put your effort in? Did you care? Did you do what you knew? Did you trust your gut? Did you operate from your principles? Did you operate from your vows? Did you operate from your values? Did you do what you know you needed to do? Like, that's awesome. Celebrate that. However the game plays out, win or lose, doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's all things you can control. Yeah. Those are things you celebrate. The things you control, you're right. That's good stuff. I love that. So a couple just things here. You talked about your culture program, which sounds really cool. How often do you find people that you've hired don't resonate with, whether it be the assessment or maybe they don't have a sports aptitude or whatever? How often does that come up and you have to part ways?
So really good question. We developed so the first time when me and Barry met, he gave a speech called "You're Not the Person I Hired." And the speech, basically the essence of it was, when we're going through the hiring process, we expect as an employer for somebody who's in one of the most emotional decisions of their life, right? You have kids, you buy a house, you get married, you change jobs. Like it's up there in the list, right? And this is one of the most emotional decisions somebody's going to make. What happens in an emotional decision? What gets triggered? Your ego.
Yeah, right.
You're in a fight or flight. You're in a constant state of your saboteurs, your subconscious driving your decision making versus your conscience driving your decision making. So how could we as an employer expect in 3 interviews and expect that they're going to come to us, the right person, unless we optimize for it, right? Unless we take the work of creating self-awareness and put it into the interview process. So we have 4 self-assessments.
Wow.
Personality assessments that you take that we ask you about. And if you don't show a level of awareness that's like, are you familiar with like the hierarchy of learning, like subconsciously or unconsciously incompetent, consciously competent?
Yeah, I've heard that terminology. Yes. Yeah.
So you can tell there's 4 stages of understanding. You can tell if somebody doesn't know what they don't know. Like they don't even know what questions to ask. They don't even know how to talk about the thing. They've done no work on themselves if they're in that stage. Do you want somebody on your team when you have this hyper-aware, self-aware culture to come in playing at like that level? Like, no, people are going to literally shun him out. Like we're a high-performing sports team culture. It's not familial. So we don't try to go with like the familial, because if you're a high-performing sports team, you guys are like brothers. You're like sisters, right? You're blood, sweat, and tears together, but you're not like familial, right? You're like brothers. You're competitive. Like I'm competitive with my brother. You know, I love him to death,
right?
But I want to kick the shit out of him all the time.
You're going to beat him.
Yeah, like we're going to compete, and we know that, and it's part of the bond, right? So if somebody can't compete on that level, we call it managing out, and they usually manage out in a matter of like, it's very rare now, I will say. But when we were first implementing this 24 months ago, there were radical changes. And we used an accountability chart for the last 4 years, right? So we knew right people, right seat. But what we were missing was culture fit. And once we got culture fit, we're growing 50% year over year. I think that's a low estimate, right? And I think we'll continue to grow at a higher clip. And it's really just culture. It's that grease of communication between departments, between team members that gets you a level of efficiency. Coming from a service-based business, if information is smoothly flowing throughout an organization, there is so much value unlocked in your human potential, which is your biggest expense on your P&L.
Yeah.
You could get your 30% more out of your biggest expense by just showing appreciation, gratitude, investing in this like culture by design on purpose for your team members that are making it happen.
It's huge. It's huge. People are happy. You know, it's interesting. And I don't want to gloss over this because I think it's a big deal. It's one thing to have 50% growth when you're a $1 million company. It's even one thing at $5 million. It's kind of cool. It doesn't really change a heck of a lot in terms of your demands of your business. But when you're an 8-figure company and you're talking 50% growth, that's a big deal. Like that's a whole nother level in terms of people, support, systems. If you don't have them in place, I mean, you run over if you don't have that in place. So it's fascinating to me knowing what I've researched about you guys. You are an 8-figure company and you're talking about 50% growth. You have to have that foundation and structure to be able to just casually mention that's probably a low number.
Yeah, I think EOS is the foundation. It's so important.
Part of it, I think you're hiring, sorry to interrupt you, but your culture, because you kind of hit on this, EOS is great for the structure, but bringing in the right people at the right seats, which I guess is part of EOS too, because that's their whole thing, and having that for where people kind of opt out themselves, I think that's that's just insanely smart strategy in terms of getting the right people in the right seats.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. We came up with it because we screwed it up enough times. So it's all lessons. And that was back to that like pivoting question, right? 10 years into this. And fortunately, my wife does let me spend like 14 hours a day working on this. So she's incredible. I'm super, super lucky. And it's just such a blessing. It really is such a blessing to get to do this and to get to work with the amazing people we have on our team and build these really impactful businesses. We're really lucky.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
To get to work with the amazing people we have on our team and build these really impactful businesses, we're really lucky.
So cool. Okay, I want to wrap up. I'm coming up on the top of the hour here. My last question to you, and then when we'll wrap up, if you could maybe just keep it to about 2 minutes. What are just 1 or 2 tips in your journey that you've learned, entrepreneurial tips, if they come to mind, that you've learned that you can share with us that maybe we could apply in our own businesses?
I would say that the number one thing for me to any young entrepreneur would be find a community that you're really, really passionate about and then that you want to serve. Find a problem that they have and then go fix it. And you're going to get rewarded based on the size of the problem that you're fixing. If it's a $100,000 problem, you're going to get paid more than if it's a $10 problem. So if I had known that coming into the game, I would have been not 10 years. I would have been maybe like a year or 2 ahead, because the first pivot was really that, right? So care about a community and then find a problem, solve it. And then for more established businesses, I would say that payroll, if you look at the line item of payroll and you look at it as, okay, right now I'm probably getting 30% of the human potential out of that line. Accept that is probably your reality. If you have an average culture, you've never intentionally done anything to build your culture other than like have a ping pong table or snacks or whatever, like that doesn't actually work. But if you're not doing anything intentional, you're probably getting 30% out of your team, their potential. If you invest in in helping your team personally develop, their lives are going to get better. they're also going to become more engaged. They're also going to find the right seats. They're going to shoot out the wrong people. And your 30% might double to 60%. You might get twice as much out of every dollar you put into payroll if you simply care about your people enough to try, to be intentional about it.
Yeah, that's huge. And when you're talking, 30% productivity versus double, that theoretically could double your revenue. It could double your profit. I mean, there's just so many places that could go.
It's so much more than that because it's like 30% more productive and they give a shit.
Right. Good point.
Imagine that, right? Anybody who says that that complains about their workforce, they are the freaking problem.
Yeah.
Anybody who complains, they are the problem, 100%.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, hey, I got to wrap up here. So I want to give you, there'll be 5, so there's 5 businesses. There'll be 5 links in the show notes at thinktyler.com. I'm not going to go over them all here, but the main one is signaturelocker.com. Once again, that's signaturelocker.com. Dan, before we wrap up, is there any other links or anything you want to share on your end?
Yeah, I'd say follow along on LinkedIn. We're putting out a lot of really great content around youth sports. And if you have any stories around youth sports to share, we're building a platform for it. We want you to be in the comments, share your stories. We want to share these stories with the world. We want youth sports to spread, and we want more and more kids involved in sports. And we appreciate everybody's help. And Tyler, thank you for having me, man.
Awesome. And then on the LinkedIn, I'll definitely put your personal LinkedIn. Is that also the business one that's sharing these stories, or is it just your personal one?
Yeah, they can find it all through my personal LinkedIn. All the companies are there, so they'll link out to it. Yeah.
Cool, man. You are the absolute best. I appreciate you being on here. Hopefully, maybe in a year or so, when you're $100 million company or whatever it is, we can come and talk about that.
Sweet. I'm really excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
All right.
That's all for this episode of Think Business with Tyler. But we have plenty more resources to help you in your pursuit of business excellence on our website at thinktyler.com. If you'd like to be featured in a future episode of the show, feel free to reach out to us on social media at think_Tyler. We look forward to helping you think life, think success, and think business.
Electricast.